Vanessa Thompson did not believe in love. Not the kind in movies, not the kind in books, and definitely not the kind her mother kept praying for every Sunday afternoon after church. To Vanessa, love was a weakness, a distraction, something that could cost you everything you had worked for. And she had worked hard, very hard. At 32, she was the CEO of Rivertown Technologies, one of the biggest software companies in Nigeria. Her picture had been on magazine covers. She had spoken on international stages. Big banks called her by first name. She lived on the top floor of a luxury skyscraper in Victoria Island, where glass walls gave her a view of the ocean and the entire city below. But the truth? She lived alone. Her life was quiet and full of screens. Laptop screens, phone screens, smart TV screens. The only sounds in her penthouse were the soft hum of the air conditioner and the occasional ping of a message. Until recently, she had a chef named Margaret who came every morning and left by night. Margaret didn't talk much, and Vanessa liked it that way. Breakfast appeared on time. Lunch was placed in the warmer. Dinner was light and ready by 8 p.m. No questions, no noise. But last week, Margaret had quit. She left a small note on the kitchen counter that read, "Madam, thank you for everything. I am going back to my village to take care of my sick mother. God bless you." Vanessa had stood there holding the note like it was a court order. Her assistant, Kemi, offered to handle the hiring of a new chef. Vanessa agreed, as long as the new person was professional, quiet, and on time. But now 7 days had passed and Kemi hadn't found anyone that fit Vanessa's high standards. "Ma, I've got 3 more chefs coming for interviews today," Kemi said over a video call that morning. "I don't need 3, I need 1, a good one." "Yes, Ma, I know, but please just be patient with them. One of them might surprise you." "I don't like surprises," Vanessa said and ended the call. She looked at her watch. It was 10 a.m. Her breakfast, boiled eggs, grilled plantain, and green tea, was missing. Again. She sighed and turned back to her laptop. Emails, memos, investor requests, code reports. Her life was a mountain of digital work, and she was the queen sitting alone at the top. By noon, her stomach growled. She stood and walked barefoot into the silent kitchen. She opened the fridge, stared inside, and closed it. She was rich, powerful, and respected, but at that moment, she had no food. Kemi called again at 12:45 p.m. "Ma, the first 2 chefs didn't show up, but the last one is downstairs. Should I let him up?" "A man?" "Yes, Ma. He's a bit, different, but he cooked for me while we waited, and honestly, his food is amazing." Vanessa rolled her eyes. "Fine, send him up." 15 minutes later, her doorbell rang. She opened the door and saw a man in a simple white shirt and faded jeans. He held a food warmer in one hand and a black bag in the other. His face had soft features, brown eyes, and a few beads of sweat on his forehead. He smiled politely. "Good afternoon, Ma. My name is Michael. I'm the chef." Vanessa looked him over from head to toe. "You're late." "I know, Ma. I'm sorry. I missed the bus and had to take a bike, but I didn't come empty-handed." He lifted the warmer. She stepped aside without a word. In the kitchen, he opened the container. The smell filled the room instantly, spicy, rich, delicious. "I made jollof rice with grilled turkey and dodo, and I brought some pepper soup too, just in case." Vanessa sat at the counter. "This is not a restaurant. I don't need variety. I need reliability." Michael nodded. "Understood, Ma, but please taste it." She picked up a fork, took a bite of the rice, and stopped mid-chew. It was perfect. Not too spicy. The grains weren't soggy. The turkey was tender, and the dodo had a slight crunch. She tried not to show it, but her eyes gave her away. Michael smiled. "Do you live in Lagos?" she asked, trying to sound uninterested. "I just moved here from Port Harcourt. My dream is to open a small restaurant one day, but for now, I just want to cook." Vanessa closed the warmer and stood up. You can start tomorrow, but understand this: no talking during work hours, no touching anything that's not in the kitchen, and absolutely no unnecessary noise." "Yes, Ma," Michael said. She left him in the kitchen and walked back to her desk. Michael stood in the middle of the large, quiet kitchen, feeling out of place. Everything around him looked expensive, from the shiny granite countertops to the neatly arranged spice rack and the blinking smart fridge that looked like it could talk. He had never worked in a place this grand before, but he didn't let it show. Instead, he pulled out his small notebook from his bag and quickly wrote down the ingredients he noticed missing from the shelf. It was something he always did: observe first, cook next. Behind him, Vanessa entered the kitchen again. She had changed from her silk blouse into a black sweater, but her sharp look was still there. "You're early," she said, checking the time on her phone. "I prefer to arrive before I'm needed. Gives me time to plan." Vanessa raised an eyebrow. She didn't expect a chef to talk like that, not with confidence, not without sounding like he was trying to please her. "Are you always this forward?" Michael shrugged. "Only when it matters." She folded her arms. "Tell me, Michael, why are you really here?" He paused. It was a question people didn't usually ask him. Not seriously, anyway. "I need the job," he said simply. "I came to Lagos 2 weeks ago. I've been cooking since I was 16. My mother used to run a food stand. I learned by watching her, then started taking online courses. I don't have a fancy degree, but I know food. I respect food, and I believe food can change a person's day." Vanessa studied him for a long moment. "You talk like a motivational speaker." Michael chuckled. "Maybe I watch too many TED Talks." She didn't smile, but the corner of her mouth twitched just a little. "Let's talk about rules," she said. "I don't like lateness. I don't like excuses. I don't like drama." "Understood. You'll work Mondays to Saturdays. You cook 3 meals, you clean up after, you stay in your lane. I can do that. I don't want you making conversation unless I ask you a question. No problem. And one more thing," she said, walking toward the fridge. "I hate noisy kitchens." Michael nodded, but then looked around and asked, "Do you want a kitchen that feels like a museum or one that smells like home?" Vanessa turned sharply. "What did you say?" He held her gaze. "I mean no disrespect. I just think food should be felt, not just served. I can be quiet if you want, but even the best meals have a little sound. Boiling, sizzling, frying. A kitchen should have a heartbeat." Vanessa blinked, unsure if she'd just been insulted or impressed. She took a breath. "I'll let you cook lunch today. 1 meal. Impress me, and we'll talk again tomorrow." Michael smiled gently. "Thank you." He reached into his bag and pulled out fresh ingredients: tomatoes, onions, garlic, thyme, and 1 small packet of his own special seasoning. Vanessa leaned against the wall and watched, curious in spite of herself. He worked quickly but with grace. No banging, no shouting, just clean movements. He washed as he went, wiped his hands often, and handled her pots like they were glass. Soon, the smell of a goosey soup with pounded yam filled the space. Vanessa stepped closer. "You didn't ask what I wanted." "I figured you've had a long day. This meal is comforting, warm, and good for the brain. Plus, I made it with goat meat. Helps with stress." She eyed him again. "You assume a lot." "I read people." When he plated the food, he didn't pile it high or try to decorate it like on cooking shows. He served it the way you'd serve someone you cared about. Neat, respectful, honest. Vanessa took the first bite, then the second, then the third. Silence. Michael stood, arms behind his back, watching her carefully. Finally, she said, "You'll start officially on Monday. You'll get a trial week. If you're late or too talkative, I'll fire you. Understood?" "Yes, ma'am." "And one more thing." "Yes." She paused, then said, "You're not here to charm anyone. This is a job. Keep it that way." Michael's voice was calm. "I came here to cook, not to flirt. You have nothing to worry about." Vanessa nodded, pretending his words didn't affect her.
By the third day, Vanessa started to notice small changes in her daily routine. She used to skip breakfast or eat it while typing at her desk. But now, somehow, she found herself sitting at the kitchen island every morning, plate in front of her, phone forgotten, eating quietly while watching Michael slice fruit or stir something on the stove. He didn't speak unless she asked him a question. He followed her rules, but there was a calmness about him that made the silence feel peaceful. One morning, he served her a plate of fried yam and garden egg sauce with avocado on the side. Vanessa took a bite and paused. It was the perfect mix of spicy and soft, comforting in a way she didn't expect. "What's in the sauce?" she asked. "Roasted pepper, onions, a little scent leaf," Michael replied while wiping the counter, "and a touch of lemon juice." She nodded. "It's good." "Thank you." He didn't ask for more praise. He just continued cleaning, humming softly to himself. It was a calm tune, maybe a church song or something from his childhood. Vanessa wasn't sure, but it made the large kitchen feel less cold. She hated that she noticed that. Later that afternoon, while on a Zoom call with a group of investors, she found herself distracted by the smell of baking bread coming from the kitchen. When the meeting ended, she walked in and found Michael taking golden brown rolls out of the oven. "I didn't ask for that," she said, sounding sharper than she intended. Michael smiled gently. "I know, but I noticed you haven't been eating lunch. I thought something warm might help." Vanessa crossed her arms. "You're not here to observe my life. Just stick to the meals in the plan." "Yes, Ma," he said simply. "Would you like me to throw it out?" She looked at the bread again. It was soft, fresh, still steaming. She hated how good it smelled. "No," she muttered, "leave it." She turned to walk away, then stopped. "And stop humming." Michael looked up, surprised. "Is it too loud?" "No, it's distracting." He nodded. "I'll stop." The next morning, the kitchen was silent. Too silent. Vanessa sat down to eat her oatmeal and fruit, and for some reason, the silence felt heavier now. She didn't know why she missed the humming, but she did. By Friday, the routine had become a little too comfortable. She knew he would be there by 7:30 a.m. She knew the smell of ginger tea would fill the kitchen by 8. She even knew where he kept his personal seasoning jar on the spice shelf, and that irritated her. One evening, she returned late from a business dinner. The house was dark except for the warm light in the kitchen. Michael had stayed behind to clean. "You didn't have to wait," she said, dropping her handbag on the counter. "I didn't. I just wanted to finish the dishes before the smell settled." He looked tired, but not upset. He washed the last plate, dried his hands, and turned to leave. Then he paused. "Can I ask you something, Vanessa?" She blinked. No one ever used her first name like that, not even her staff. She stayed quiet. Michael continued, "Why do you live like you're in a box?" Her expression hardened. "Excuse me?" "I don't mean it in a bad way," he said quickly, "but everything here is closed off, quiet, cold. You've built a castle, but you're the only one in it." She stared at him for a long moment. "I hired you to cook, not to give me life advice." Michael nodded. "You're right, forgive me." He picked up his bag and walked to the door. Vanessa didn't stop him. The rain came without warning. One moment, the Lagos sky was clear, the sun sitting high over the rooftops. The next, thick clouds gathered, the wind picked up, and thunder cracked across the city. Inside the penthouse, Vanessa stood by the window, arms crossed, watching the rain beat hard against the glass. It reminded her of her childhood, the sound of water hitting the tin roof in her grandfather's village house. But this wasn't a village, and she wasn't a child anymore. She was the boss, the one people feared, the one who kept her feelings buried deep. Michael had just finished making dinner, stir-fry noodles with vegetables and shrimp, when the lights flickered twice and went off.
The entire house fell dark. "Backup system should kick in," Vanessa said, moving to her phone. But the house stayed dark. Michael lit the small emergency lamp by the fridge and placed it on the counter. Then he looked around. "Looks like the inverter didn't come on." Vanessa walked quickly to the elevator and pressed the button. Nothing. She tapped again. Still nothing. "I'll take the stairs," she muttered, grabbing her phone. "The generator's outside. I need to check the switch." "Wait," Michael said, concerned. "Let me go instead." "No, I'll handle it." Before he could say another word, she stepped into the elevator. A second later, the lights blinked again, and the elevator made a sharp, grinding sound. Then, silence. Michael dropped his spoon and rushed over. "Vanessa?" he called. No answer. He hit the call button. Nothing. He grabbed his phone and called her line. On the third ring, she picked up. "I'm stuck," she said. Her voice was calm, but there was a tiny shake in it. The light went off. Everything's still. "Stay on the line," Michael said gently. "Just breathe." "I'm fine." "No, you're not. You're scared. I can hear it." She didn't answer. Michael stepped closer to the elevator doors. "You're not alone, okay? I'm right here." There was a long pause on the line. Then she whispered, "I hate small spaces." "Okay," he said, voice soft and steady. "Then let's make this space feel bigger. Close your eyes. Imagine you're somewhere wide, maybe a beach. The sky is open. You can smell the ocean. Can you see it?" "I see it." "Good. Now breathe slowly. In and out." She obeyed without thinking. Minutes passed, just his voice in the dark. Soft, kind, steady. Finally, after almost 20 minutes, the power came back on with a loud click. The elevator jolted back into motion and opened on the top floor. Vanessa stepped out quickly, eyes wide, breathing fast. Michael rushed over. "Are you all right?" She nodded, then said quietly, "Thank you." He smiled. "Next time, let me handle it." Vanessa walked past him and headed to her room without another word. But that night, she didn't sleep well. She kept replaying the moment in her head, not just being stuck, but the way Michael had spoken to her, like someone who cared, like someone who wasn't afraid of her. The next morning, she woke up to a soft knock on her door. Kemi, her assistant, entered with a paper folder. "You have a visitor," she said, with a strange look on her face. "A visitor? Who?" "Lakin." Vanessa's heart skipped. Lakin, her ex-fiancé. She hadn't seen him in 2 years. "Tell him I'm not—" "He's already downstairs." Vanessa sighed and walked out, unsure of what to expect. In the living room, Lakin stood in a clean gray suit, holding a bouquet of white lilies. "Vanessa," he said with a smile, "you look even better than I remember." She didn't smile. "Why are you here?" "I'm in Lagos for a few days. Thought I'd see how you're doing. No hard feelings, right?" She stayed quiet. "I made a mistake," he added, "leaving you. You were the best thing in my life, and now I see that." Vanessa folded her arms. "It's too late." He laughed softly. "Maybe, but I just needed you to hear me say it." Behind her, near the hallway, Michael stood frozen. He had come to bring her juice, but now he stood quietly, watching the scene unfold. He saw the man, the flowers, the soft expression on Vanessa's face. He turned around and left without saying a word. The morning after Lacan's visit, Vanessa woke up feeling strange. She had always been good at putting her emotions in boxes, neat, tight boxes that she could stack and hide. But something about the look on Michael's face yesterday wouldn't leave her mind. He had seen her with Lacan, and since then, he had changed. Michael still showed up on time, he still cooked, he still followed every rule, but he was quiet in a different way now, not calm, but distant. Vanessa noticed. At breakfast, he didn't ask how she liked the food. At lunch, he left the table before she even picked up her spoon. And when she passed by the kitchen in the evening, he didn't look up from the sink. By Thursday, she couldn't take it anymore. "Michael," she called from across the kitchen. He looked up, surprised. "Yes, Ma?" "Is something wrong?" "No, Ma." "You haven't said more than 10 words to me all week." He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Just trying to respect your space. That's what I was hired to do." She stared at him, unsure how to respond. She wanted to say something soft, but her pride stood in the way. "All right then," she said coldly and walked away. That evening, she had an important company dinner. Instead of letting Michael prepare the food as usual, she called an outside catering team. When he saw the catering van parked outside, Michael didn't say anything. He simply returned to wiping the counters and keeping out of the way. But Kemi noticed. She leaned toward Vanessa and whispered, "Ma, why did you bring a caterer? Michael always handles these things beautifully." "I wanted something more professional," Vanessa replied quickly. Kemi didn't believe her, but she stayed quiet. The party started at 6 p.m. Her investors, board members, and other tech CEOs filled the penthouse. Everyone wore suits and evening dresses. Music played softly in the background. The waiters moved through the crowd with trays of small snacks and glasses of wine. Vanessa smiled and nodded at all the right people, but her eyes kept scanning the room. She didn't even realize what she was searching for until she glanced toward the kitchen and saw that Michael was gone. She asked Kemi quietly, "Where's Michael?" "I think he left after the catering team arrived." Vanessa's chest tightened. Around 9 p.m., the party was in full swing. Guests laughed, toasted to business deals, and shared stories about their latest wins. But Vanessa was distracted. She excused herself quietly and stepped onto the balcony, looking out at the Lagos skyline. The wind blew gently against her face, but her thoughts were loud. She didn't miss Lacan. That chapter was closed. So why did she feel like something important had walked out the door? An hour later, the last guest left. The house was quiet again. She walked into the kitchen and found a note taped to the fridge. It was from Michael. "Dinner's in the warmer. I left early so I wouldn't be in the way. Hope the event went well. No good night, no see you tomorrow. Just that." Vanessa took a deep breath and grabbed her car keys. She didn't know what she was doing until she was already outside, heading toward the estate gate. She remembered Michael once mentioned he lived just a few streets away, in a small boys' quarters behind a local bookstore. She got there and parked. And there he was. Michael stood by the roadside, laughing with a woman carrying a basket of fruits. She was a neighbor, maybe, or a friend, or someone closer. Vanessa didn't like the way her chest reacted. He looked so relaxed, so different from the silent chef in her house. He was wearing a simple white shirt, and his laughter came so easily. She sat there watching, hidden in her car, and for the first time in a long while, she felt something she didn't even know she was capable of: jealousy. She didn't like it, but she couldn't deny it. She drove home in silence, parked the car, and sat alone in her living room, lights off, eyes open. Something had changed, and it had nothing to do with food. Saturday morning started like any other. Vanessa woke up at 6:30 a.m., checked her emails, and scrolled through the latest business headlines. The sun lit up her white curtains, and the city below was already moving. But something inside her wasn't calm. She sat up in bed and stared at her phone. Michael hadn't sent his usual breakfast menu note. No good morning, no quick question about what she'd like to eat. She waited. Nothing. By 7:45 a.m., she finally got up and walked into the kitchen. He was there, quiet, focused, chopping carrots with calm precision. He didn't look up. "Good morning," she said. "Morning, Ma," Michael replied, still not meeting her eyes. She leaned on the counter, arms crossed. "I noticed you've been avoiding me." Michael paused, then said, "I've been doing my job." "That's not what I asked." He finally looked up. "What do you want me to say?" Vanessa's voice sharpened. "Say what you're thinking." Michael dropped the knife and faced her fully. "All right, you want honesty? I think I crossed a line. I forgot who I was in your world. I'm the chef, you're the boss. That's all this was supposed to be." She stared at him. "So that's how you see it?" "I didn't at first, but I do now. I saw you with that man, the one who brought flowers, and I realized I'm not needed, not really." Vanessa stepped closer, her eyes burning with emotion. "His name is Lakin, and he's my past. I didn't invite him to come and beg for forgiveness. He showed up without warning. I didn't even want to talk to him." Michael looked down. "Didn't seem that way." She exhaled sharply. "Why do you care, Michael? Why are you so angry if you're just the chef?" Silence fell between them. Then he said, quietly, "Because I fell for you." Vanessa blinked. "I didn't plan it," he added. "I know I'm not your type. I don't have money or status, but every time I watched you eat my food or sit alone with that tired look in your eyes, I wanted to be more than the man behind the kitchen door." Vanessa's chest tightened. Her voice came out lower now. "I've built my whole life to avoid this," she whispered. "Feelings, relationships, I don't know how to do it." Michael stepped forward slowly. "Then let's figure it out together." She looked up into his eyes, and for the first time in a long time, she didn't feel like the boss, or the billionaire, or the one who always had to be in control. She felt like a woman. She leaned in. He leaned in too. Their lips met, softly at first, like a question. But just as the kiss deepened, the sound of a loud gasp came from behind them. They broke apart instantly. Standing at the kitchen entrance was Kemi, Vanessa's assistant, eyes wide, phone in hand, frozen in shock. Nobody spoke. Then, without thinking, Kemi turned and rushed out of the room, the phone still in her hand. Vanessa stared at the empty doorway. She saw us." Michael nodded slowly. "And she was holding her phone," Vanessa added. "Oh no." Panic started to rise in her voice. Michael stepped back. "It's okay, maybe she won't say anything." "She works in media, Michael. She runs the company's PR team. This is not something that'll stay quiet." He looked at her, searching her face. "What do you want me to do?" Vanessa was silent. Her heart was racing, but her mind was already trying to protect itself. "I don't know," she said. "I need to think." Michael gave a small nod. "I'll give you space." And just like that, the warmth they had shared a minute ago melted into tension and fear. As he picked up his bag and left the kitchen, Vanessa stood still, the smell of stir-fry still in the air, her lips tingling from the kiss, and her mind already dreading what tomorrow's headlines might say. The story broke on Monday morning. It wasn't loud at first, just a small blog post on a gossip site. Billionaire tech queen caught kissing her personal chef? A blurry photo followed. Vanessa and Michael in the kitchen, close, lips touching, faces half hidden by the soft kitchen light. By noon, it was everywhere. Social media exploded. Business news platforms picked it up. Investors began to send cautious emails. Her board of directors scheduled an emergency meeting. Vanessa sat in her office with her laptop open, but she couldn't concentrate. Every few minutes, her phone buzzed with another call or message. Kemi hadn't spoken to her since that day. She hadn't returned to work either. Michael hadn't shown up that morning. And the worst part? Vanessa didn't blame them. She stood by the window, arms crossed, watching the clouds shift over the city skyline. The glass felt cold against her fingers, just like her heart. For the first time in her career, she didn't have a plan. She had always been prepared, always ahead, always in control. But now, she had no script, no code, no backup, just silence and regret. By evening, her company's lawyer arrived at her house. "The board wants to meet with you privately," he said gently. "They're worried about your image, your leadership. The story is spreading too fast." Vanessa nodded slowly. "I'll meet with them." "There's also the option of releasing a statement," he added. "We can deny the photo or say it was taken out of context." Vanessa shook her head. "No lies." "Then we might need to do damage control. Maybe distance yourself from the man." The words hit her hard. Distance yourself from the man. He wasn't just the man. He was Michael, the man who made her feel seen, the man who spoke gently when the world was too loud, the man who reminded her she was still human. She went quiet for a long time. Then she opened her drawer and pulled out a blank check. She filled it quickly, signed it, and handed it to the lawyer. "Give this to him. Tell him to leave quietly. Say it's a thank you gift for his service." The lawyer nodded and left. But as soon as the door closed, Vanessa sat down and covered her face with her hands. Tears came. Not loud, not messy, just quiet drops of sadness she had never let herself feel before. She didn't cry because she was in trouble. She cried because, for the first time in her life, she had found something real, and she was letting it go. The next morning, the doorbell rang. She wasn't expecting anyone. She opened the door and froze. Michael stood there, not with a suitcase or a sad goodbye, but with something entirely unexpected. A food truck, painted soft yellow with bold white letters on the side. MJ Kitchen, more than a meal. He wore a plain apron and a nervous smile. In his hand, he held the check she had sent him, torn in half. "I don't want your money," he said. "I didn't come here for that." Vanessa blinked. "Why are you here?" "To remind you that you're more than a company, more than a scandal, more than a title." He looked into her eyes. "You told me once that you don't know how to love, but I think you're learning. And I'd rather build something with a woman learning to love than spend my life cooking for people who feel nothing." Tears stung her eyes again. "But your name is all over the blogs," she whispered. "Your face is everywhere." Michael smiled. "Then let them know me properly." He reached into his apron and pulled out a folded paper. A business permit. The food truck was registered in both their names. "I sold my mom's old land, used the money to build this. You don't owe me anything." Vanessa stared at the truck, then at him. "This is crazy," she said. "Maybe," Michael replied, "but so is love." He held out his hand. "Come with me, just for today. You don't need to make a speech. Just sit in the truck while I serve the first batch." Vanessa laughed quietly, wiping her eyes. "I've never been in a food truck before." "There's a first time for everything." She took his hand. They walked down together, side by side, into a new kind of future. One that wasn't perfect, but was full of flavor, feeling, and second chances. Under the Lagos sky, with the smell of grilled suya in the air and curious neighbors gathering around, Michael flipped the first serving of rice onto a plate. And Vanessa, sitting on a small stool by the truck window, finally smiled like someone who had found something worth keeping, something more than a meal.